Hey folks, I just happened to be looking at this $20 bill, and I haven't seen a $20 bill in a long time, and so I was looking at the portrait on it. You'll notice that's Andrew Jackson there, the 7th President of the United States, and I thought, well, how funny. I guess I'd never really noticed that was Andrew Jackson, or I didn't know anything about Andrew Jackson before, but I thought it was funny that they would put that the Federal Reserve. After all, this is a Federal Reserve note. The Federal Reserve has put Andrew Jackson's picture on one of their notes. I thought that was funny because Andrew Jackson hated the central bank. In 1832, he vetoed the rechartering of the Second Bank of America, which is the predecessor to the Federal Reserve. He vetoed their rechartering, and in 1833 he withdrew all of the money from that bank. He hated the bank. So why did they choose him for their $20 bill? Maybe it's a bit of a tongue-in-cheek joke. Maybe it's like they're trying to say, look, this guy thought he killed us, but here we are, we're back, and better than ever. It's funny, isn't it? Guy that thought he killed the central bank, and then they put his when they finally come back, they put his picture on it. Maybe one reason they might like him is because he was a strong supporter of the Union. He fought against the nullification, which was when South Carolina and people in the South were up in arms against the high tariffs that were benefiting the North but hurting the Southern farmers, and they were talking about secession. And then he got a law passed. He could enforce the laws, the federal laws in South Carolina, whereas South Carolina thought that they got to pick and choose which laws they could follow that were passed by the Congress. Another possible reason they might like Andrew Jackson is that he ruthless against the Indians. He was quite a military man. He fought against the Indians many times. He got Florida for us from the Spanish. Apparently during his administration, they got 100 million acres of land from the Indians for $68 million, and an agreement to give the Indians 32 million acres out west where we hadn't settled yet. He was also a big slavery guy, Andrew Jackson. He owned a big farm out in Tennessee, big plantation, where he started off with about 9 slaves, and at one point got up to about 150 slaves. So he was big. He was pro-slavery, anti-Indian, but also anti-bank, or anti-central bank. So maybe that was the only thing he had going for him, really. The only real plus to Andrew Jackson was his hatred of the central bank. Everything else is a negative about him. That's it. Poor guy. He had a hard life, though. All of his family were killed by the Brits during the Revolutionary War. But Jackson would also be very angry today because this is paper money. In 1836, he issued the Specie Circular, an order that all government lands purchased must be paid for by gold or silver. So he hated paper money, and he hated the central bank. So this is the Federal Reserve's, this is the bankers' way of getting back at Andrew Jackson for all those years, for all the things that he did to them. They thought, ha, we've got you now. That's it. Peace. Remember, Andrew Jackson, now you know a little more about him. Later. Hundreds of years ago, kings and armies would behead their enemies and post those heads on stakes as a warning that all who pass by won't forget their power. America's central bank has done the same thing.